Hey folks, this is the English speaker, and this video here is a follow-up to an earlier video that I made talking about your accent and why I think it's important that you pay attention to it. I wanted to make a second video about that because when I went back and listened to what I had said, I realized there were a few things that I wanted to clarify. And the first thing I wanted to clarify is when I was talking about how intelligent someone will perceive you being. And what I want to make clear is that I don't want people to be freaking out and worrying that native speakers will think you're stupid just because you don't speak English fluently with a perfect fluency. And I really don't think that is the case. And I think I might have talked about intelligence a little bit too much in that last video. But I think what is important and what can have an effect on just relationships and interactions with native speakers is that when you're conversing with a native speaker, uh, you do want to pay attention to how easy it is for a native speaker to converse with you, because I think you will find primarily two different types of people. If you are someone learning English and talking to a native speaker, there are some native speakers that are going to be excited that you're learning language, that you're learning English, and will help you along the way and take the time to, like I mentioned before, kind of get your ideas out, help you express whatever you're trying to say. But there are others that won't take that extra amount of effort to have a conversation with you. So that it's more about the effort on the part of the native speaker rather than the native speaker thinking you're stupid. So I just wanted to clarify that. Another thing that I wanted to talk about is that in that first video, I was kind of mixing ideas. And on one hand, I was talking about your accent, and then I also kind of started talking about how quickly uh, you are to react to what is being said and being able to participate in a conversation as uh, native speakers are talking at their normal speed and just being able to participate in that sort of conversation. So those are two different ideas. And in the first case, talking about accent, I kind of just wanted to give an example of what I was talking about. And for me, I'm going to give an example in Spanish. What I'm going to do in a second here is I'm going to say the same phrase twice. The first time I'm going to say it with my best Spanish, trying to pronounce it as correctly as possible. And then the second time, I'm going to pronounce it as I have heard some other Americans speak Spanish with what I would consider a not great Spanish accent. So here is the first phrase in what I hope will be decent Spanish. A mí me encanta hablar este idioma y hablar con gente en español. All right, that was the first one. And here's the second one. A mí me encanta hablar en español con la gente. All right, so actually, I think that phrase was, I said it, the words were slightly different, but I'm sure Spanish speakers definitely heard the difference between those two phrases. And even if you're not Spanish speaking, you can go back and listen. That in one case, in the second case, I had a very heavy English accent because I was pronouncing the words as an English person would read them without having a good Spanish accent down. And I kind of don't know if I like admitting this, but when I was in South America, I was paying so much attention to pronouncing things correctly, that it became a pet peeve of mine when I was around other Americans that had a horrible accent. And I don't know if that it was good of me or wrong of me to almost get annoyed when I heard other Americans not speaking Spanish very well, and it was wrong of me because some people you're always going to find people that are at different levels in terms of their fluency in the language. So it would be wrong to get frustrated with someone just because their accent may not be all that great. But I think what's important is that you make the effort to continually be improving your accent and trying to just speak as best you can, and maybe try to lose your accent from your country of origin. And I'm not saying that I want you to or that it's important to forget where he came from, or lose your native culture in terms of who you are as a person. I'm just talking about in terms of how you speak a language. Um, so yeah, that's what I was kind of trying to get across in terms of accent. But then I also talked about in that previous video being able to converse, being able to be and participate in a conversation with native speakers, and how for me that was really hard when I was first learning Spanish to be able to participate in a conversation with native speakers because I wasn't able to think and react fast enough. And I just wanted to share one tip that was useful to me when I was trying to go from there's a transition that you make when you think in your native language, and then you try and translate what you're thinking into the language you're trying to speak. So in my case, my native language is English. I would be thinking in English, and then when I wanted to say something, I would translate an English thought into Spanish and then say it. But what I think eventually happens is that your mind kind of switches from, for me, it was from thinking in English to thinking in Spanish. And once you start thinking in Spanish, everything just comes far more natural in terms of conversing with people. And one thing that I did to try and help that transition take place is that when I was walking around the streets of Quito, I would narrate in Spanish in my head what I was doing. So it wasn't quite the same as just thinking in Spanish, but I was basically just talking to myself in Spanish. And I would say really simple phrases like, I am walking down the street, or that person has a dog, or that building is brown. So really, really simple things, because it kind of has to correspond to your level of Spanish at that time. Um, but the more I did that, the more it started to become natural, and the thoughts became more complex. And that really helped when I started interacting more. Just because the more you are comfortable and the more time you spend in a particular language, obviously the more natural it's going to be when you speak that, and the quicker you will be able to react to situations, so that you can participate with native speakers. And that's kind of that's what's the coolest thing when you learn a new language, regardless of what that language is that it allows you to participate with people of a different culture, of a different country. And that's what I think, that's what traveling should be all about. And yeah, that's what learning another language is all about. So I'm getting pretty close to the 10-minute mark, and I making it my goal not to go over 10 minutes in any of these videos. So I think I'm going to shut up now. As always, feel free to leave questions below, and I will talk to you guys next time.